Do you think it's possible that Epstein was killed?
Oh, sure, it's possible. I mean, I don't really believe. I think he probably committed suicide.
On July 6, 2019, Epstein was arrested. He's charged with sex trafficking of minors and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of minors. He's sent to the Metropolitan Correctional Center in downtown Manhattan. A few days after landing in the MCC, Epstein was transferred to the Special Housing Unit, or SHU. This was to keep him safe from Gen Pop and over concerns that he may commit suicide. 1 week later, Epstein was denied bail by a federal judge who acutely described him as both a danger to the community and a flight risk. On July 23rd, we have our first suicide attempt. Prison officers find Epstein alone, on the ground, barely conscious, with marks around his neck. He's taken to the hospital wing where he's treated for his injuries. Subsequently, he's placed on suicide watch and monitored 24/7. 1 week later, he's taken off suicide watch, although now he's required to have a specially trained cellmate with him at all times to be sure he doesn't do it again. In a letter to the House Judiciary Committee, the Justice Department stated Epstein was removed from suicide watch after being evaluated by a doctoral-level psychologist who determined that a suicide watch was no longer warranted. What? The place he's being held is not swanky. It's known for filthy conditions, vermin infestations, substandard medical care, violence, and abuse by guards. It was described by one terrorist as, quote, worse than Guantanamo Bay. Seriously, the guy serving a life sentence for bombing 2 American embassies in East Africa in 1998 told a psychiatrist that he found Guantanamo, quote, more pleasant and more relaxed than the MCC. You're telling me Epstein tried to kill himself, spent another week in that jail, and then decided, you know what, I'm actually feeling a whole lot better. And you believed him? That's weird. Of course, Epstein never claimed to be suicidal. His version of events was that he had been attacked by his cellmate, Nicholas Tartaglione, who looks like this. Formerly a New York police officer, Tartaglione was incarcerated for quadruple homicide. Something about a cocaine distribution conspiracy gone wrong. But yeah, let's put this absolute beefcake of a murderer in a room with a child sex offender. Brilliant idea. Also weird. Tartaglione claims he had nothing to do with the assault. Sadly, we'll never know exactly what happened, as the footage from outside the pair's shared cell no longer exists. We know because Tartaglione's lawyer requested it be released to the public. Instead, in a letter from US prosecutors, quote, the footage contained on the preserved video was for the correct date and time, but captured a different tier than the one where cell 1 was located. The requested video no longer exists on the backup system and has not since at least August 2019 as a result of technical errors. So no camera footage. Hope that doesn't become a trend. That's weird. On August 8th, with 2 attorneys as witnesses, Jeffrey Epstein signed his last will and testament. In it, he designated 2 long-time employees as executors and put all of his assets in a trust. This he valued at $577 million. The next day, Epstein is back in his cell with his new cellmate, not on suicide watch, when this happens.
Nearly 2,000 pages of court documents released today reveal new, lurid details about the allegations against accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. According to the documents, which are part of a defamation suit settled in 2017, Epstein accuser Virginia Roberts Giuffre says Epstein ordered her to have sex with a number of powerful men.
You know, before you know it, I'm being lent out to politicians and to academics and to people that royalty.
I bet those powerful men were terrified when they saw that on the national news. If the feds knew that much, then Epstein's goose was truly cooked. That means he would have to use his get-out-of-jail-free card. What's that? Why, just the names of everyone involved in his pedophilic sex ring? Now think, if you were involved in such a thing, somehow, wouldn't you move heaven and earth to keep people from finding out? Wouldn't you want to silence the man who knew everything? Especially if that man had recordings that put you in a compromising position with children? Remember, the non-prosecution agreement Epstein signed is now null and void, its protections declared illegal. The day those recordings were released was Epstein's last full day on this earth. Seriously, he's dead the next day. That's weird. That same morning, August 9th, Epstein's cellmate is transferred out of the prison in a routine transfer. No new cellmate is assigned. Seeing how Epstein is required to have a cellmate, that's weird. Regardless, Epstein is now all alone, but not actually alone, right? He was assigned to the cell closest to the correctional officer's desk, which was about 15 feet away. The guards also conducted institutional counts of the prisoners periodically and did rounds of the cell block every half hour. If Epstein tried to kill himself again, someone would have noticed. Well, not if the guards just straight up don't do their jobs. We know from security footage that multiple guards across 2 8-hour shifts did not perform the regular mandated counts of the prisoners. Instead, they sat at their desk, browsed the internet, and slept. And it's not as if they just forgot to work. They signed dozens of official slips, stating they had done their appointed rounds of the prisoners. Just straight up lying. That's weird. No one checks on the prisoners in the special housing unit for the entire night of August 9th. No one enters the cell block from 7:49 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. The next morning, when the guards were delivering breakfast, Epstein was found unresponsive in what appeared to be a second suicide attempt. He hanged himself from the top of his bunk using a noose made from a strip of bedsheet. He was in a kneeling position, his butt barely off the ground. He was soon taken to New York Downtown Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 7:36. Now, people do off themselves in prison. As a white man over 55, Epstein was in the prime demographic to do so, not to mention a pedophile. He was guaranteed to have a lousy time in prison. There are a lot of Tartagliones behind bars, all looking to avenge Epstein's young victims. It's entirely possible he decided it just was not worth it. And there have been other suicide attempts at the MCC facility. However, the last successful suicide before Epstein, also a hanging, happened 21 years before all this. That means that Jeffrey Epstein was the first successful suicide at this facility in the 21st century. That's weird. Of course, there are consequences. 2 of the correctional officers on duty were charged with falsifying records and conspiring to defraud the United States. They were facing possibly decades in prison, until they weren't. At the start of 2022, a federal judge dismissed the charges against 2 of them. They both got deferred prosecution agreements. All they had to do was complete 100 hours of community service and cooperate with a DOJ Inspector General review of the case. That's weird. Don't worry, there are 2 cameras outside of Epstein's cell that may have captured something. Oh, wait, never mind. Both cameras have corrupted footage. Unusable. They've since been sent to Quantico for analysis, and we've heard nothing since. That's weird. Also, Epstein apparently left a note. It reads as follows, quote, "Davis kept me in a locked shower stall for 1 hour. Noel sent me burnt food. Giant bugs crawling over my hands. No fun. I'm not a psychologist, so I won't speak as to whether I think Epstein wrote this note or not. Similarly, I'm not a medical examiner, so I won't speak as to whether Epstein's neck being broken in several places is significant or not. I've read that it is, but I can't say for sure. I don't know how many tally marks are in my weird counter by now, but I bet it's a lot. I'll leave it up to you to decide how Epstein died. But honestly, the worst part of all this is that we still don't know who Epstein's pedophilic clientele was. These people, through money and power, have avoided retribution for their heinous deeds. They've gotten away with it. They've won. Key takeaway from this video, United States justice system, corrupt. But it's corrupt in a particular way. How can I phrase it?
And went through hell to get here.
He had. After being arrested, he found a loophole in the Mexican judicial system.
I have money.
The Mexican authorities even attempted to fake his funeral, although it was a less than perfect deception.
Wait, you don't think Jeffrey Epstein is still alive? Okay, but can't we talk about how the courtroom sketch artist did this poor woman dirty? Her eyes are not that far apart. Seriously, if I ever go to court, please get me the person who did this rendering of Sam Bankman-Fried. If they can make Frodo Baggins look like Brad Pitt, they're good enough for me.